Welcome everybody to Oz and Gaon. We haven't seen you for a while. We've convened here today to salute a very great woman, Ruth Matar, and we are marking 30 days. Ruth Matar of blessed memory established Women in Green in order to fight for the greater Eretz Israel. She had initiative, she had courage, she had skill. She was devoted to her mission and her goals. And Matar also means matara, which is goal in Hebrew. And her friends and herself always went to protests and disseminated flyers and protests, especially after the Oslo Accord. And their perseverance bore fruit, and they were able to bring back to the awareness of the people that the Oslo Accords were a disaster. They were able to halt the terrible drive, the madness to a false peace. She had a wonderful family, she still does. She has left a glorious family, and because of her enterprise and her activity, she has merited a descendant, an inheritor that follows her footsteps and continues the fight for Israel, and that is Nadia. Nadia could not have worked without the support of her husband, David Matar. And Ruth, of blessed memory, we all thank you that you're always there for us. We would like to ask David to say a few words in memory of his mother, the fighter, the dreamer, and thank you to Yaakov, the brother, who is also an artist in his own right. As you can see there at the back, he donated this mezuzah to the Zionist Library. I think there's no more befitting place than where it is right now.
למען ירבו ימיכם וימי בניכם על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם לתת להם כימי השמיים על הארץ. וזה גם מסמל את האימי, כל העבודה שלה בצרפות ובתכשיטים היה לזה כלי וענווהו, להדר את המצוות, וגם תכננו שבתוך המילה אדמה זה יהיה איפה שנמצא ירושלים, שבתוך האלף של אדמה זה, אנחנו יודעים שהאלף זה הוויה, ושהשם סביב לעמו, ירושלים הרים סביב לו והשם סביב לעמו. שירושלים נמצא תמיד בתוך הזה, ואימי תמיד נלחמה בעד ירושלים ובעד עם ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לקבוע מזוזה. אמן. מסתדר? יופי, תן לי עכשיו. אוקיי.
Welcome one and all. First of all, I would like to confirm what Yudit said, that the real successor of the heritage and the tradition and the shlichut, the mission of my own mother, of blessed memory, is indeed my wife, Nadia. It is a very big merit for us. And for me, that I have such a wife who is a real partner, who continues the enterprise of my beloved mother. And those who might ask, wait, who is continuing her enterprise? Her daughter-in-law? What about the kids? Let me say the following then. That in the big yeshivas in Lithuania, there weren't like the Rebbes, the Hasidic Rebbes, that the son was always inherits the father. They always looked for the best Bachor, for the best Talmid Chacham. So, if a Rosh Yeshiva wanted a successor, he always looked for the best disciple, for the best student for his daughter, and then married his daughter off to him. And that exactly that is how they continue the tradition of the yeshiva. with the very best candidate, the most skilled student. And because of this, there were those who said, I think somebody said to me during the Shiva, that everybody knows that my mother chose Nadia for me. Now the myth goes that because Nadia is so suitable and so successful and so everything and so wonderful, then it cannot be that me, the Shemerel, I chose her myself. How could that be? Only mom could have done that. And it is very logical, actually. But, it's actually not true, but who cares? I actually ran upon Nadia. I came upon her myself. And it is true that because I was an old guy, I was an alter bachor, I was about 32 years old, God forfend, I had a dilemma. You might not understand this now, but the day that I wanted to leave the house, with a ring, to propose to Nadia, I didn't know what to do. I contemplated. I got cold feet. My mother pushed me out of the house and she said, "Don't come back here without her." That's exactly what happened. Baruch Hashem. So in fact we would like to commemorate Mother. We remember her last period in life, when she established Women in Green and fought like a lioness. I would say from about 1992 to about 2005, 2006, until she became sick with her last illness that continued for another 13 years, maybe even 15 years. No, it was 13 years. And so we remember the period of time, since she was 65. I'm 65 years old at the moment, until she was 76 or so. And she passed away at the age of 89. But first and foremost, I think this would be a good lesson for all of us, that even at the age of 83, you can start a new life, take on new missions, new shlichut. And my mother, in the different points of time in her life, reinvented herself, so to speak. And she, with new conditions, she took on new missions. And she did it time and time again. For example, she was born in Austria in 1929. And the first part of her life, till the age of 9, it was a childhood. She was the youngest out of 6, children. She was pretty spoiled. It was a pretty affluent family in one of the suburbs of Vienna. Her father had a factory for clothes, and it was sort of really a factory for suits, I would say. And then it all ended. This entire, idyllic situation ended in Kristallnacht, November 1938, when she was 9 years old. And the Anschluss was in May in 1938, and Kristallnacht was in November of that year. So she was 9 at the end of October of that year. And she was sent by her parents to Sweden in the Kindertransport. And then she had to reinvent herself again. She was in Sweden for 7 years. In the meantime, her parents fled to Italy. Then they were all unified in the United States in 1946. And then a new period began, the third period. She had to reinvent herself again, as an American this time, and as a excelling student. And then later on as a student of sociology. And then she met my father in the USA. They got married in 1954. And there was another period of time. It was the fourth period in her life. And first of all, she was a mother. And she was my dad's secretary, by the way. He was a lawyer. And then after she raised her children, she looked for new meaning. She looked for a mission, because she always had this drive to do, to create. And she reinvented herself yet again as an artist. And she also, studied how to make jewelry. And I remember during my late childhood, she was hardly ever at home. She was always busy with that devotion to the new career that she took upon herself of a jewelry maker and working with silver. And then later on, she made jewelry for various galleries and for leading companies like Cartier and Tiffany and such. She created all sorts of jewelry from gold. And then she reinvented herself again, because after the Six-Day War, my parents decided that the redemption has indeed arrived, the time of the redemption, and they decided to make Aliyah. And they had good economic situation. They were affluent, but they uprooted their home, went and bought a house in Yemin Moshe, and built their entire future around that, huge risk, I would say. Then my mother, who was just a jewelry maker and created jewelry for others, they decided that maybe she could make an entire collection of clay Kodesh, of Judaica, from gold. And not just 10 different designs, but 100 different designs. There was a chance they took, and they said she could do it. And she did. She worked day and night. It was, again, a new period of time. Her gallery, for example, until the gallery was established in 1967, till 72, she had a very successful gallery in Jerusalem. And you could see at the back, you have a sign, Ruth Matar Yamin Moshe. That was actually, it was a sign that was up there. It was a brand name. And in the beginning of the 90s, before the Oslo Accords, when the left took power in 1992, already back then they talk about, abandoning parts of Israel and giving territories and giving Yehuda Shomron away. And my mother was so frustrated. She was so angry. She was sad. She was completely sad. And in a moment I'll talk about it. But she had a wisdom, and usually, her heart would join her mind, and she would use both together in order to drive her. And she always devoted herself, at least in her 13 years of activities in Women in Green. She went out to demonstrations, and it was even sort of artistic demonstrations, you may call them. They were creative demonstrations, with costumes and all these little shticks. She always had these ideas, and all to draw attention, draw attention from the media that was always very hostile. And she had a program on the radio, and she wrote articles, and day and night, no rest ever. She always devoted herself, to sacrifice herself to this fight, to the struggle. Nadia was right next to her, and in 1992, Nadia was this innocent little lamb, if I may say. She, she wasn't as she is now, as I remember her. And of course, with my father, who helped her, and also wrote articles, his own articles, and he funded the activity, and he enabled all this activity throughout that period of time. It was a very stormy time, and my mother and Nadia, of course, were arrested a number of times. I think, many people were sitting here were arrested with them, and Nadia and my mother were, in jail together a number of times. I thought that maybe I could send over to the Guinness Book of Records the number of times that a woman and her mother-in-law spent together in prison. But let me just read out something. I would like to actually read out the eulogy that I said during the Shloshim. That was about her life, but let me just sum it up more in terms of a Torah perspective. There's no such thing as coincidence in this very small world of ours. I looked for insights that would summarize and define her multifaceted character, that Ruth Matar, who was so beloved to all of us. How can we capture in words the essence and a life that was so stormy, so concentrated, of a woman who was always in the forefront of any fight, any struggle, any war that she came across? And behold, in the framework of the 929 Bible program, I learned some verses from the Parsha of Vayakel Pkudei about all those who helped build the Mishkan in the Midbar, in the desert. There are two groups that are mentioned there. Those who donated the materials of which the Mishkan was built, which was crimson and gold and silver and copper, and they are called Nedivei Lev, those of a generous heart. It's written in chapter 35. That men and women came, all the Nedivei Lev, all those generous heart came. The second group included all those that donated to actually do the work itself. They were called Chachmei Lev, those of wise hearts. And they were headed by Bezalel and Hur and Oliab ben Achisamach, who created with great skill the vessels of the Mishkan from expensive materials. And also it says the women Chachmot Lev, wise women who came and weaved the beautiful materials that were used to cover the Mishkan. And these artists created themselves and also taught others and instructed them in this holy work, as our mother instructed and taught my brother Yaakov in this artistry. And the Torah keeps saying Nediv Lev, those of generous heart. We're not only talking about artwork of artists, but Chachmei Lev, wise people who were mentors. The Or HaChaim, who's a well-known commentator, and explains that a generous person donates money, whether a lot or a little, but in accordance with what he or she has. However, somebody who has a heart that is nadiv, a generous heart, will contribute even more than he has, because he's so happy by giving, even more so than what he does have or owns. So the Torah defines a person who is a nadiv lev, of generous heart, as somebody who nesa'o libo. That is the words used by the Torah, meaning his unique soul and his spiritual energy actually lifts him up above nesa'o libo. He's raised above any calculations or any practical considerations, and just drives him to give. A person who is a chacham lev is also described as a nesa'o libo, meaning his heart draws him upwards by his inner energy to create beautiful things, to make works of art that are actually beyond the regular ability, human ability. There is a very clear description in that parsha. Vayikra Moshe, and Moshe called Bezalel and Oliab and all those of wise heart, that Hashem placed wisdom in their hearts, all those that their hearts raised them to the work, and all the women whose hearts raised them to work. Those are the words. They weaved those materials. So we have a lovely description of art as some sort of a lofty experience, something that the heart draws you above and beyond. Where does that skill comes from? The Torah gives a clear answer. Ruach Elohim, a spirit of God. It is an almost supernatural gift, a God sent, that God instills in people, because artistic skill comes as a gift from heaven. The role of the artist is to devote himself to this talent, not to deny it, and to become elevated through it, and to create the sense of elevation among others as well. That is Chachmei Lev, artists. But we didn't find that the Nadivei Lev, that the generous people did it because of some sort of an elevation. But those people who give more than what they can, we see it somewhere else. We see a different drive. It's a force of love. Only the love of those of generous hearts, and understanding that there is God present in them, caused people to bring more than they had to. If you remember in the Mishkan, Moshe had to tell the people to stop bringing contributions because there was way too much. They simply wanted to bring more and more than was needed. I hope that this is in our Head Start, the crowdfunding that will be starting soon. Hopefully that will be the case as well. But I don't think that Judith and Nadia will ask you to ever stop, I think.
Anyway, Ruth Matar.
And I'm going to sum up. Ruth Matar was a Chachmat Lev of wise heart, but mainly she was in a Divat Lev of a generous heart. The Chachmat Lev belongs to the period of Ruth the artist from Yamin Moshe, and the Nedivat Lev, when she was of generous heart, that belongs to the period when she was part of Woman in Green. Her huge heart raised her way and beyond, and of course promoted her to create beautiful works of art, vessels, holy vessels. But as an active woman in Green, she didn't only love and invest in everybody, but she made sure. She wanted to ensure the future of Am Israel, of the children, that the future of Eretz Israel will be safe, and her heart did not allow her to rest, and oftentimes didn't let her sleep at night. And this we would like to remember, this heart of hers that is sort of beyond the body, and that remains even when the body is no longer there, because her heart, her nidivut lev, her generosity of heart, continues in our hearts and drives our hearts. And Yehi Ratzon, may we merit that her heart continue to push us all, to activate us all till the Messiah comes. Thank you so much, David Matar.